Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennifer, and this is Aaron, and we are student speech pathologists from the University of Sydney. Today, we wanted to discuss something that all teachers and educators have observed in their classrooms: children who struggle to keep up with the primary school curriculum. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodianship and law of the country on which the University of Sydney campuses stand. We pay our respects to those who have cared and continue to care for the country. Now, here's the good news. Struggle isn't a dead end. It can actually be the start of a new trajectory, one that moves upward if the right supports are put in place. Over the next 20 minutes, we will explore why this topic matters, what's happening to these children, how to identify the signs early, what research tells us, and finally, what we can do in practice to change outcomes. Let me start with the number 1 in 5. That's how many children in primary school struggle with literacy or learning difficulties. Imagine your classroom. That's on average 5 kids in a classroom of 25. When a child struggles in school, it's not just about marks on a test. It's about confidence. It's about belonging. It's about whether they believe they're capable of learning. I want you to picture a child who avoids putting up their hand, who stares at their workbook because they don't even know where to begin. That feeling of I can't do this slowly chips away at their well-being. To build a positive trajectory academically and emotionally, we need the right support so that the same child can move from frustration to success. This is why this topic matters so much, because as teachers and allied health professionals, we have the capacity to empower a student's schooling journey.
So, why do children struggle? Well, the reasons are as diverse as the children themselves. Some individuals may have a language disorder, such as developmental language delay, or DLD, which makes understanding and using words particularly challenging. Others may have ADHD, where staying focused is their greatest challenge. Some experience dyslexia, developmental delays, or have missed schooling due to illness. The list goes on. These children often face a wide range of barriers, including poor phonological awareness, limited vocabulary, and weak oral language skills. They require more time to process information, struggle to stay focused for long periods, and have difficulty managing information presented in multiple modalities. In fact, there's strong evidence of comorbidities between developmental language disorders and reading difficulties, which makes it incredibly difficult for children to access a curriculum, participate in classroom activities, and feel successful. And the cherry on top, these challenges often undermine a child's feelings of mastery and self esteem. A common assumption some teachers may have is that a struggling student is simply lazy or not putting enough effort. Just try harder and you will shine, as Gilmore and colleagues in 2009 noted. But when 17 out of 20 such lazy students were assessed, they were found to have significant phonologically based learning disabilities and attention problems. This highlights why empathy and compassion matter. When we look at a student and think, what's standing in their way and how can we can support them, rather than they're not just paying attention, we begin to see their potential. A strength-based approach allows us to identify, value, and build upon what each child can do. It reminds us that every learner possesses unique abilities, whether academic, creative, social, or emotional, that can serve as a foundation for growth. Instead of labeling students by their limitations, this approach highlights strengths and cultivates a positive, supportive learning environment. For young learners, this shift is especially powerful. Early education shapes how children see themselves as students. When teachers and parents recognize strengths like curiosity, problem solving, or collaboration, students feel capable, motivated, and more willing to take risks. Over time, celebrating these strengths builds confidence and a genuine love for learning. With the right support, we can change a trajectory, and that's what today is all about.
Teachers are often the first to notice when a child is struggling and to refer them for support, such as to a speech pathologist. They're the ones observing daily challenges with oral and written language, the foundations for accessing the curriculum. But what does this look like in the classroom? These are the children who are often reserved in group activities and rarely volunteer, avoid reading aloud, sometimes don't answer direct questions, frequently lose their place in complicated tasks, make poor academic progress, struggle to follow multi-step instructions, or are easily distracted or appear to have short attention spans. Often, these children are labeled as acting out, but not because they want to be disruptive, it's because they're struggling to access the curriculum and don't know how to ask for help. When language and literacy demands exceed a student's skill level, avoidance and misbehavior can become coping strategies. These students may feel embarrassed, frustrated, or defeated, especially when their difficulties go unnoticed or misunderstood. Juliet Young's illustration of the weathering hypothesis serves as a powerful reminder that repeated academic struggles can erode a student's confidence and motivation over time. Her visual metaphor, the bad behavior iceberg, offers insight into the deeper, often unseen reasons behind challenging classroom behaviors. It suggests that what we typically label as bad or inappropriate may actually be surface level expressions of underlying distress, such as anxiety, stress, or sensory overload. These hidden factors can significantly hinder a student's ability to access and engage with the curriculum. This perspective invites educators to pause and reflect. Is this behavior a sign of defiance or a sign of difficulty? By recognizing the signs of hidden learning challenges, teachers can respond with empathy, targeted support, and inclusive strategies that help students feel understood, re engage with learning, and thrive. These are the red flags we need to advocate for. As an extension of this, students who experience challenges in oral language almost always experience challenges in written language, including reading and writing. These difficulties can also transcend to their adult lives. Diagnoses such as developmental language delay are often lifelong. So, the earlier we notice, the earlier we can act. Think about this. Noticing a struggling student in year 1 gives us years to build a foundation. However, noticing it in year 5 means we're catching up on years of frustration. Early identification isn't just best practice, it's essential to changing a child's learning trajectory.
And of course, we want to know what actually works. Well, research gives us some clear answers: interprofessional collaborative practice, structured literacy interventions, and cultural responsiveness. Now, let's talk a little bit more about collaborative practice. We know that access to the curriculum is a key predictor of school success. But access isn't just about being present, it's about being able to engage, participate, and learn meaningfully. A 2024 study by Cahill and colleagues reminds us that improving student outcomes isn't just about direct intervention, it's about collaboration. When families, teachers, and allied health professionals work together, outcomes improve not only academically, but also socially and emotionally. Dr. Kimberly Farinella describes interprofessional collaborative practice as more than just teamwork. It's a dynamic, integrated approach where professionals share their knowledge, skills, and responsibility to achieve shared student goals. And it doesn't stop there. Interprofessional collaborative practice can even drive systemic change by informing school leaders and policymakers, influencing broader educational practices. When professionals collaborate, they align their efforts, meaning every goal is purposeful, complementary, and avoids redundancy. It's not about doing more, it's about doing better together. Because interprofessional collaborative practice is embedded in classroom contexts, skills generalize more easily as well. Students apply what they learn in real time, with peers, in authentic settings, and that's where the magic happens. So, what does this look like in practice? We've summed it into 4 strategies and means of collaborating. The first one is shared goals and collaborative planning. In IPCP, professionals co create student-centered goals. Farinella in 2024 emphasizes that these goals should reflect the educational impact of a child's difficulties, not just discipline-specific targets. For example, rather than separating goals for speech and literacy, the team might agree on a unified goal: improving classroom participation through better comprehension and communication. In this way, the goal becomes more meaningful and functional across contexts, supporting the child's participation in learning and social activities. This collaborative approach ensures that interventions are aligned with the child's real-world needs and educational priorities, fostering shared ownership and accountability among team members. Integrated service delivery. Rather than pulling students out of class for therapy, interprofessional collaborative practice promotes in-class support. Speech language pathologists and other professionals co-teach, observe, and provide real-time feedback, making interventions more relevant and inclusive. For example, an SLP might co-teach a literacy lesson, while an OT, or an occupational therapist, provides handwriting feedback during class. Educators report valuing this approach, finding it more practical and directly applicable to classroom dynamics. In this way, students receive support in the context where learning happens, making it easier to generalize skills and strategies. This model also strengthens collaboration between educators and allied health professionals, fostering shared understanding and consistent approaches. By embedding therapy into everyday routines, it reduces stigma, increases engagement, and promotes inclusive education that benefits all learners, not just those with identified needs. Capacity building. SLPs play a key role in building teachers' capacity through training, workshops, and shared resources. This empowers educators to implement strategies daily, enhancing the sustainability of interventions. By equipping teachers with practical tools such as visual supports, scaffolding techniques, and language facilitation strategies, SLPs extend the reach of therapy beyond scheduled sessions. This capacity building approach fosters a more language rich classroom environment where communication supports are embedded in everyday teaching practices. And fourthly, family and student involvement. Families have expressed a desire for better coordination between professionals. Including them in discussions helps identify each child's strengths. For example, a parent might share that their child learns best with visuals, prompting the team to integrate visual supports across classroom and home routines. When we collaborate with families, we strengthen both learning and relationships. So let's put it all together. Let's look at an example. A second grader with reading comprehension and receptive and expressive language difficulties. The team, including an SLP, special education teacher, classroom teacher, and parents, sets a shared SMART goal. The student will increase participation in classroom activities with peers by independently completing at least 50% of an assignment at the same time as peers in 3 out of 4 group learning activities per week. In an interprofessional collaborative setting, the roles of each professional can be seen as follows. The general education teacher selects and adapts materials to align with curriculum goals and manage the academic flow of the day to support whole class learning. The special education teacher co-teaches literacy lessons, providing targeted support and differentiation to meet diverse learning needs. The speech-language pathologist delivers classroom-based language instruction that enhances students' communication skills and supports access to the curriculum. And finally, the parents reinforce classroom strategies at home by supporting homework and encouraging consistent learning routines. This is interprofessional collaborative practice in action, coordinated, purposeful, and student-centered. So when professionals collaborate effectively, we create conditions for learning, shared goals, inclusive classrooms, and meaningful engagement. But access to the curriculum doesn't stop there. One of the most powerful ways to truly open the door to learning is through literacy, because literacy isn't just another subject, it's a key that unlocks every subject.
A systematic review by Coleman et al. In 2022 found that structured literacy interventions, especially systematic synthetic phonics, make a measurable difference for children with language difficulties with significant gains in reading accuracy, fluency, and comprehension. So what exactly is systematic synthetic phonics? It's a structured, evidence-based approach that teaches children how letters represent sounds. It's called synthetic because children synthesize individual sounds to form words. For example, slim becomes slim. They also learn to do the reverse, segmenting words into sounds when spelling. Before introducing phonics patterns, students need a solid foundation in the alphabetic principle, understanding that letters correspond to specific sounds. Teachers should first ensure children can confidently recognize, name, and sequence all letters of the alphabet, for example, through singing and visual alphabet charts, as this underpins all later decoding and encoding skills. In real classroom, this looks dynamic and interactive. Teachers or SLSOs introduce 1 or 2 new sounds each week using visual, auditory, and kinesthetic cues to reinforce learning. This can include children practicing blending and segmenting with flashcards, sound mats, or magnetic letters, children tracing letters while saying the sound out loud, engaging their eyes, ears, and hands simultaneously, or SLSOs can also extend these skills in small groups through games such as sound hunts or build a word. During shared reading, teachers can highlight target sounds, and during writing, gently prompt students to sound it out. This consistent embedded practice across contexts builds phonological awareness and decoding skills in a natural and engaging way. Students benefit from repeated meaningful exposure and practice, which strengthens generalization and retention. The collaborative approach of systematic synthetic phonics also fosters a shared language among teachers, SLSOs, and specialists, increasing consistency and confidence in delivering literacy support. It's simple but powerful. The impact isn't just on reading accuracy, it's on confidence. Children start to see themselves as capable readers and writers. And because systematic synthetic phonics supports differentiation, it can be used in whole classes, small groups, or one-on-one intervention, ensuring every child can access the curriculum. But literacy success isn't just about sounds and letters, it's also about connection. And that's where cultural responsiveness comes in. A 2025 study by Gubison and Moore found that when interventions reflect children's cultural and linguistic backgrounds, engagement and outcomes improve significantly. When children see themselves in what they're learning, like their language, their stories, their families, learning becomes meaningful. Culturally responsive teaching means embedding students' identities into everyday learning. In practice, this might look like reading storybooks that celebrate the cultures represented in your classroom, creating classroom displays that showcase different family traditions, languages, or community events, inviting students to be language helpers or culture leaders, sharing a word, recipe, or celebration from home, using multilingual labels and visuals around the classroom, incorporating oral storytelling traditions, music, or art from students' backgrounds into literacy tasks, adapting writing prompts to allow personal or cultural narratives, and using examples in maths or science that reflects students' lived experiences. Teachers and SLSOs can also collaborate with families to adapt materials, translating key vocabulary, linking literacy topics to real life experiences, and bridging home and school learning. These small, thoughtful actions have a huge impact. They build engagement, belonging, and comprehension, making learning personally relevant. For students with speech, language, or literacy difficulties, especially those from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, this approach helps reduce barriers to accessing the curriculum. It validates their identity and encourages participation even when academic tasks feel challenging. When we would combine structured literacy instruction with cultural responsiveness, we don't just teach children to read words. We help them see themselves as readers, thinkers, and valued members of the classroom community.
Early collaborative and tailored support changes outcomes, but we also know that time and resources can be major barriers. So, how can we start small? The SMART framework, adapted from Monstrosity in 2019, offers simple, evidence-based strategies that support engagement for all learners. S. Slow down. Give children more time to process what's being said. M. Magnify. Highlight keywords to cue understanding. A. Add visuals. Use gestures, pictures, or visual supports. R. Repeat instructions. Repeat 2 or 3 times for clarity. And T. Time to respond. Allow for extra time to formulate a response. To expand on adding visuals, the teacher's 5-point written or language checklist offers strategies to further facilitate engagement with written language. For example, incorporating visually distinct sections or headings, using icons and illustrations linked to key ideas, highlighting or bolding keywords, using tables, diagrams, and timelines, and keeping the language simple, specific, and direct, but not simplified in content.
So, what does this all tell us? That struggle doesn't define a child's future, support does. When teachers, speech pathologists, families, and allied professionals work together, we create classrooms where every child can succeed. When literacy instruction is structured, inclusive, and culturally responsive, we're not just teaching reading and writing, we're building confidence, identity, and lifelong learning. And while time and resources can be barriers, even small intentional changes, slowing down, adding visuals, repeating instructions, or celebrating culture can make a world of a difference. Every child deserves to see themselves as capable, as someone who can learn, can participate, and can thrive. Because when we build a positive trajectory early, we don't just change academic outcomes, we change lives. Thank you.